Risk is necessarily a cause and effect statement. Risk is exposure to danger. This demands mechanistic causality be in effect. A reasonable challenge is, what would the exact mechanism of harm be? But you don't need that. The following seems better. If factor X is to be considered a risk or dangerous, hazardous, etc., then cause and effect has to have been established via experimental science. Whatever that cause and effect may be, experimental work under control is required to establish it. Failing this, the term risk should not be used. Unfortunately, the term is ubiquitously used by epidemiologists in contravention to this simple logical progression. I believe the motivation for that to be inappropriate aggrandizement of nutrition epidemiology, coupled with a desire to falsely claim to be able to inform on risk in order to fraudulently bolster the importance and utility of the field. Typical study conclusion. This study showed that all-cause mortality risk was higher in the people who do the thing that I don't like them doing. Interesting. Whose risk? Is my risk affected by doing the thing that you don't like that I do? How would you justify such a cause and effect statement? The paper conclusion is being misused by many to read, if I were to reduce my behavior X, my risk of death will be positively affected. Effect is the conjugate of cause. Where is the experimental cause and effect science that would be required to assert such a thing? In short, while the paper uses the term risk, it is actually incapable of informing on any one person's risk of any given outcome. Additionally, it is incapable of predicting anything whatever in any group of people in the future. By the way, who were these subjects? I.e., what were their demographics? If I'm to take the study that talks about risk as remotely relevant to myself, then I would expect that the group of people being assessed would have identical demographics to my own. Further, just out of curiosity, what absolute and unadjusted incidence differential did the study report? In incidences per person per year of follow-up, this usually works out to a very small differential indeed. Why unadjusted? One cannot adjust the incidence observation and call oneself a scientist. Adjustment is based on the fundamental fallacy that association can inform on causality, i.e. no one competent says a single variate regression can inform on causality. That being true, and it is, multiple variate regression is necessarily similarly unable to inform on causality. Ergo, you cannot correct out the influences of any factors precisely because you have not established their causal contributions to the hard outcome, i.e. death, diagnosis of disease process, etc., the hard health outcomes. So, in short, the implication that you should take a prospective cohort nutrition epidemiological study seriously as being able to at all predict the likelihood of any hard health outcome in you, the individual, yes, you, dear viewer, that idea is ludicrous. Absolutely ludicrous. The findings of such studies are universally differentials between subgroups of subjects in those studies that are so close to zero as makes absolutely no odds to you, dear individual viewer, over a 100-year lifespan. And these are studies that purport to be able to inform us on a cause and effect relationship, underpinned necessarily by the definition of the very word they're using, risk. There has to be a mechanism. It has to be established with experimental science and corroborated with experimental science properly applied under the disciplines required to collect such data. So that, dear viewer, is how you deal with the part in the argument that you'll have with these ideologues where they'll throw one of these studies at you and say, look, here's a study that shows absolutely that doing the thing that they don't like that you're doing will kill you. Tune in again next time for another micro lesson on another micro part of such arguments for you to study. See you then.